Hi, kids. Okay, it is time for Vincent Price. We're going to start with a little background, as I always do. So, Vincent Price's grandfather um, invented a form of cream of tartar, teamed up with a banker, um, put that product out. So, it was Dr. Price's phosphate baking powder. So, gets a family fortune from that. And then his father, Vincent Price's father, who's also named Vincent Price, so Vincent Sr., um, gets a bunch of the candy companies to merge. He founds the National Candy Company. Um, so if you've ever had, I've got the list here, so anything like a Baby Ruth or a Mr. Goodbar, Milky Way, jelly beans, those all come from the National Candy Company. So on Halloween, when you're eating your treats and you're getting scared, the Price family can help you both, do both of those. Post-secondary, Vincent Price goes to Milford Academy. You can always tell a Milford man. Then he goes to Yale and studies art history. Teaches for a year after that. Then theater catches his eye. So he starts out in film as a character actor, just as Lon Chaney did. He was a pretty good one. And then his first horror movie that he's in starred Boris Karloff. That's Tower of London. And then he replaces Claude Rains as the Invisible Man in The Invisible Man Returns. He did a whole bunch of film noirs as the villain. And then he's also in a couple of horror movies centered around gimmicks, right? So the 30s, we've got horror in the top of the box office. World War II happens. Like I said before, people are looking at other things for entertainment. So horror movies try a bunch of gimmicks, right? So one of them is House of Wax, which is the first major studio 3D movie. It's a remake of a movie I've mentioned before, Mystery of the Wax Museum, which was directed by Michael Curtis, director of Casablanca. You knew it was coming, right? You had to. You had to. The other one that is also around the gimmick is Tingler. So for that, they would put buzzers in audiences' seats in the theater, and in certain scenes you get a little shock. So that's where horror was in the 50s. What else here? He's in The Fly, so the start of body horror, and Return of the Fly. So there you go, Misfits fans. House of Haunted Hill. But he was still doing non-horror stuff. He's in the Ten Commandments. Then he teams up with Roger Corman, and they do a whole slew of movies from Edgar Allan Poe short stories. The Raven, Murder in the Rue Morgue, The Pit and the Pendulum. We'll talk about those a little bit because my next video is going to be Roger Corman. Where was I now? Got distracted by Roger Corman. He's in The Last Man on Earth, which is a adaptation of Richard Matheson's story, I Am Legend, right? So he's in that. That's the best version. It gets remade as Omega Man with Charlton Heston. And then the one that you more probably know best is I Am Legend with Will Smith. The villains in that are, it's like a plague breaks out, right? It's post-apocalyptic. There's a plague, kills everybody. The plague, the creatures are kind of like zombies, or not zombies, sorry, vampires. but that is the inspiration when George A. Romero makes Night of the Living Dead. That's what he's thinking of for what we now refer to as his zombies. He called them at the time ghouls. But he was looking at the last man on Earth for that, not things like White Zombie. Um, so he had just everything. Vincent Price is in everything. He was in cult movies like Witchfinder General. And he wasn't adverse to making fun of himself and his image in things like Dr. Goldfoot and his bikini machine, right? He would appear on TV in comedies, Get Smart. He's on Hollywood Squares. Of course, he's Egghead in the 60s Batman. Um, he used his art history degree, amassed quite an art collection. Um, he was an art consultant for Sears. And then also from his family history, he had a love of cooking. So he put out a bunch of cookbooks. He even had a cooking show. Um, and then if you still don't know any of those things, you're too young, you don't know who he is. He is, of course, the narrator in Michael Jackson's Thriller. That is something that scared me as a kid, just his voice. He's got a great voice. He also narrates on Alice Cooper album, which is way before that. Or he is the voice of the bad guy in The Great Mouse Detective, which is like the mouse version of Sherlock Holmes. He plays the Moriarty type villain in that. And then, of course, Tim Burton was a huge fan of him. One of his first things he did was the short film Vincent. And one of Vincent Price's last roles, maybe his last role, is in Edward Scissorhands, right? He's the creator that makes Edward Scissorhands. Is Edward Scissorhands a robot? Is he a robot or is he a person? What do you think? Anyways, shooting that was limited because he had Parkinson's at the time. And yeah, and then not long after that, he passes away of lung cancer. So that is Vincent Price. A little bit of everything. You should go now and just watch all of his stuff. Over 100 film and TV credits. And he was also in radio.